Good afternoon again, everyone. Please keep going with your main course if you're not yet through it, but we're going to press on with our feature presentation this afternoon. Rob mentioned just before the main course break there, Miner's Promise. Just to update you, so far this year we've raised just a few dollars shy of $9,000 to go towards our charity partner Miner's Promise, which is a fantastic cause. So everyone who is here today, a portion of that ticket price goes towards Miner's Promise. So by being here today, you are also supporting Miner's Promise. So thank you very much. Just before I invite our speaker up to the stage, once again, we're using the Slido portal. So if you'd like to throw a question to our guest this afternoon, please feel free. The easiest way is just to point your phone straight at that QR code that's up on the screen there. If you want to punch it in manually, the code is also there listed on the screen, 26JUL1, as you see it on the screen. And we'll endeavour to get to a few of those questions at the end of our chat on stage. So to our guest this afternoon, Darryl Cuzzubbo is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer at Arafura Rare Earths. He has more than 30 years of experience in the global resources industry. His previous roles have included President at Olympic Dam, one of BHP's most strategic mining and processing assets in Australia, and Group Executive and President of AusPac Asia at Orica, one of the world's leading mining and infrastructure solutions providers. Throughout his career, he's been focused on delivering complex technical processing infrastructure and projects to commercial production and organisation-wide transformational change programs. Try saying that in a hurry. Darryl has a degree in mechanical engineering. He's got 2 master's degrees and is also a member of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. So would you please welcome Darryl Cuzzubbo up to the stage. Thank you for being with us this afternoon.
My pleasure.
Let's start with the obvious question. Your amazing Nolan's project in the Northern Territory. Tell us about it. Tell us what makes it special.
Yeah, I will. Just before I answer that question, I just wanted to pass on an observation about the WA Mining Club. So I've been to many mining clubs, both here and abroad. This is a remarkable club. So the energy, the vibrancy, the camaraderie, you're always talking about people, whether it's safety, employment, development, or other stakeholders, and it feels like there's you're united by this pride in the resource sector. The reason I wanted to mention that is because unless you've seen other mining sectors, mining clubs, you don't know how special and unique this mining club is. So anyway, I just want to share that. Just to answer your question, so yeah, we've got the Nolan's project, so Arafura Rare Earths, we just recently called FED. What makes it, there's a number of things that makes it a special project, apart from being in rare earths, when rare earths is in hot demand, is firstly, if you look at all the rare earths projects, they generally process to a concentrate or a carbonate. We go all the way to an oxide. So what that means is we can be an alternative to China. If you don't go to that degree, you're not an alternative to China. The other projects don't do that because it's a lot harder to fund. So the Arafura team took on that challenge. We're still on a very large ore body. So it's open at depth, 400 metres, and the first 200 metres is 38 years life. So we will be around for more than half a century. And we're at the bottom of the cost curve. We've got this guy called Dr. Alex Elliott. He's a process guru. And about 6 years ago, we actually had a bit of a breakthrough from the economics. So if you look at our ore body, it's a phosphate-hosted ore body, and he basically changed the flow sheet, supported later by Hatch, where we use that phosphate to generate phosphoric acid that we use in the process, so it saves us reagents. We sell the excess, and then we don't have to neutralise the waste stream. So we get this triple whammy effect, which takes us from the middle of the cost curve way down to the bottom of the cost curve. So very large ore body, low cost, and we can bypass China when the world really needs it.
There's perhaps a perception that you're a relatively new project. Tell us a little bit about the background of Arafura, because I think for many people they might be surprised to hear how long it's actually been around.
Yeah, it's been around for more than 2 decades, but it started out as looking for uranium.
Yep.
And rare earths is often found with, uranium and thorium, but there wasn't sufficient uranium to be economic. Then looked at phosphate, and then really, I think it was the last 15 years, it was focused on rare earths. But the real breakthrough was about 6 years ago.
Yeah. You're at a pretty exciting stage at the moment. Tell us where you're at and how far ahead you can look towards full production.
Yeah, so we just, literally, it's only about a month ago that we called FID. We have our EGM tomorrow. So I'm hoping this is a very positive indictment for that. Subject to a positive vote, which we're confident of, will be fully funded. So we're full steam into construction. So construction start in September. It's a bit over a 3 years build.
Yep.
And
You're talking about construction of all the processing facilities?
That's right. So the mine and the process plant, but it really is more process plant than mine. So about 90% of the capex is in the infrastructure and the process plant, 10% is on the mine. And then 2 years, 2 years ramp up. And if you look at Linus, I know you had Amanda here. I was here for that. It took them about 3 years. We've kind of learnt from that, and we've given ourselves 2 years to ramp up.
Yeah. We hear a lot about the complexities around separating the rare earths, digging it out. It's kind of the easy bit. Processing it into its pure product is the tricky part. What is it about your product? You're saying that you're going to be able to take it right the way through to essentially a finished product to bypass China. What is it that allows you to do that perhaps some of your competitors aren't able to do?
Yeah, so it's so it always comes down to people and expertise. It is complicated. So a good analogy is Olympic dams. You've got the mine, you've got the beneficiation plant, you've got a complex hydromet plant, and then you've got the solvent extraction separation plant. And the trick is, how do you bring all of that together and operate it as an integrated complex plant? So that expertise exists, but it is challenging. I think some of the key aspects to it is you kind of got to look at it as a chemical process plant, not as a mine. So it's a different skill set, different mindset, but you've got to invest accordingly. So your operating technologies, your maintenance strategies, it's quite different for a complex process plant. I think we're pretty lucky. We do have a very strong process team. We've got Hatch as our EPCM, and they've done our process engineers. They're our process engineers, and I would say they're number one in the world. And I don't say that because of just Arafura, but experience I've had with them in previous roles as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Linus and Amanda Lacaze. So anyone who was here that day, I think, probably walked away pretty impressed with what she had to say, not only about the Linus project, but about the significance of it on the global geopolitical stage, if you like. Nolan's, how does that compare to, say, what Linus are doing, what's happening at Mountain Pass in the US, who are often listed as the two really critical stages, projects rather, that are going to reduce the stranglehold by China on the sector?
So just a little bit of a plug for Linus, right, and what Amanda has done in 11 years. So she is the only one that's got a rare earth project up that could be an alternative to China, despite, I'm going to call it, the price suppression on rare earths. So she's the only one, right? So Mountain Pass has moved into production off the back of US government support a bit over 12 months ago, essentially. But Amanda pulled it off, and she's the only one, right? And if anyone really gets into the Linus story, a book should be written on what she's pulled off. It truly is remarkable. We're similar in the sense that we go to an oxide, same as Linus, and Mountain Pass, in the US, they are also going to an oxide. Mountain Pass intend to go all the way to a magnet, so fill out more of the supply chain. I think that's going to be difficult, because I think when you produce an oxide, that's one sort of skill set and mindset, and producing a metal to a magnet is a very, very different business. So they're essentially trying to get up to two businesses, which I think is going to be difficult. But the similarity is that the three of us can bypass China.
Yeah, and in terms of your production, how much product you can pump out into the market when you're at full capacity,
Yeah.
Can you compare what you're going to be able to do to those other
So
two
I'm
players?
so glad you asked that question. So I'm going to connect this to market cap, right? For all of the investors, I want to connect that to market cap.
I'm not trying to solicit
Actually,
sales pitch here, I promise.
this was not one of Tim's questions, by the way, but thank you for asking it. So phase one will produce 4,400 tonnes of NdPr oxide, and that's about enough rare earths to support about 4.5 million electric vehicles. Our phase two that we will progress the engineering and approvals for in parallel with building phase one is up to 10,000 tonnes. And Lynas is currently producing 7,000 tonnes. Their market cap today is 19 billion. Our market cap is 1.4 billion.
So
we have some upside.
Yeah.
We deliver, we've got some upside.
And arguably seriously undervalued at the moment.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that. That didn't come from me.
I'm not on a retainer or anything, I promise, ladies and gentlemen. Talk to us about the challenges that you're facing as you are really ramping up into your next phase.
Yeah, so we do have challenges. So obviously building a complex process plant, we're 130 k's out of Alice Springs, that has its own challenges. We're pre-revenue, so we've got to build this thing, on time and on budget. So we have those challenges. The thing that, getting the right sort of people, and the project, the complexity, the challenge of it is actually inherently attracting the right people. So we're very pleased with the people we're able to attract to our organisation. But probably the thing that keeps me up at night the most is just the ramp up. So I've got this operational engineering background, and I know that will be tough, but I know that's the upside, that's the downside, that's the upside. And ultimately it comes down to, in my view, three things. One is the people and the culture, and the culture has to suit the complexity of the plant. So it's really about process control, seeing issues and preventing them. The second thing is just about maintenance. You can't have a stable operation if you don't have a stable plant. And that has progressed significantly. But also on the, I'm going to call it, how you integrate the plant through operating technologies, the use of AI, digital twins. So we'll focus very much on those things. And because we know it's a challenge, we can plan for it. But the other thing is market risk. So one of the things that Arafura has been strong on is, so China has controlled or has prevented a rest of world rare earth sector by controlling price. It's to the point where China's rare earth producers have often not been making any money. So we're advocating for using a seaborne index that is independent and transparent. Through the US government support, they actually established such an index October of last year, but we need to get other projects, other consumers, producers, putting volumes on that index, and therefore if it's independent and transparent, then the price will reflect the market fundamentals. If the price reflects market fundamentals like any other commodity, copper, gold, then investors will more freely come in.
Okay. Are you finding that if I can put it as aligned Western democracies are willing to pay a premium for a non-China product? So
we have never pushed that barrow because I think it will never lead to success. It's a little bit of a nuance, is what we've tried to say is let's establish an independent and transparent index so everyone pays the same price, and allied countries should get around that. And the US is quite supportive of that. I think we're seeing Japan move to that as well. Others need some, I'm going to call it more encouragement. But the best thing in our favour, and I'll give you a number, and we share this with investors, is last year the average price of an electric vehicle was $46,000 US. Do you know how much rare earths costs to enable that EV? $100. So would you pay, if you were the CEO of a car manufacturer, would you pay an extra $30 to enable a $46,000 vehicle to roll off your manufacturing plant? So I think it's a little bit different to lithium and nickel, where it's a much bigger part of the cost base. But look, coming back to your question, there is a movement to this independent index. We announced a binding contract just last week on that index. The US did a deal with us 2 months ago on that new index, so it is happening.
There's a perception, I think, as well that you're very much one of these special projects, a chosen one, if you like, on the global stage as we hear more and more about reducing China's dominance in this space. Has that been entirely helpful to you, or has it been a hindrance on any level as well?
Look, it's absolutely been a net benefit, but it has had its downside. So the net benefit is when we were mentioned as part of the US-Australia Critical Minerals Framework, last October we did our biggest raise and got most of the money that we needed. So it's definitely been helpful. But one of the challenges is, given the focus on rare earths, and most investors don't understand the rare earth sector. It's actually quite a complicated, nuanced sector, and institutional investors haven't really put the time into it. So you've got all this profile on rare earths, you've got these investors wanting to put money into it, and a lot of money has gone into a good story rather than a good project. And what that means is there's going to be, I think, probably quite a number of examples where people lose a lot of money and make a lot of money, and that's still to come out in the wash. So we've had to contend with good stories that say they can get into production a lot quicker than we can, and we've just had to say, look, we've done the work, right? We've done the pilot testing, we've done the engineering, and you just can't shortcut some of that stuff.
So being part of that broader conversation around things like national security and military preparation and all that sort of stuff, is that just all kind of external noise to you, or does that factor into your day-to-day decision making?
No. So we, if you look at us, the last 4 years have been predominantly around getting funding. And I mentioned that before we took the ore to oxide strategy, and the reason why pretty much everyone else doesn't take that strategy on is because the funding is very difficult. Peter's our CFO here. It was his strategy, right? Was lock in the offtakes with ECA countries, then lock in the debt that's ECA covered, and then the last piece, bring in the equity after significant due diligence. So a lot of what we had to do was lock in those offtakes. So when you have got sovereign risk at stake, then you obviously can get attention that you otherwise wouldn't in this quite intense, let's call it, geopolitical situation.
Yeah. There's always a significant amount of attention too that goes with a significant shareholder in Arafura. I'm talking about Mrs. Reinhardt here. When she makes a big investment, there's always attention on that. Can I ask you about her involvement, apart from just being a significant shareholder? Her participation in the Arafura story. Tell us about that.
Let me share probably a couple of perspectives. So firstly, if you think about Hancock, they came in early. So it must have been about four years ago. And when they came in, they brought in interest from other investors, right? So if they had not have come in, I'm not sure we would be where we are today. And what I would say as an observer of Hancock is they are very good at seeing through the noise and knowing where to invest, and they're brave. So often you'll see in institutional investors, they sometimes can see through the noise. They usually don't, but they sometimes can. But then they're not brave. Whereas Hancock, they've got that, right? They can see through the noise, make good investment decisions, and back it. So they did that with us, and thank goodness that they did. They had, I remember when I started as MD, they only had one requirement. And it says a lot. They said, just build out your process capability.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, that actually is the main risk that we have. So forget about everything else, just build your process capability. And as long as we've been doing that, they've been incredibly supportive. In fact, they've gone from 10% to 17% shareholding.
Yeah. there's been so much talk over the years about how far ahead China is in this space and the critical mineral space more broadly. It seems finally there are steps being taken to start to, in reality, reduce their dominance in this space. And I think a lot of that's been sort of pegged to the determination by the Trump administration. Do you think we would be where we are now without the push by the current US government?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Right. So I find there's lots of commentary about what's happening in the US, good or bad. At least they're breaking the status quo, and at least they've had the courage to do something about it. If the US had not, so I'm going to say generally most countries and companies have wanted to diversify their supply, but not annoy China. And sitting on the fence is a very uncomfortable place to be. Whereas the US, I think it was April of last year, made a decision. They backed their mountain pass. They put in a floor price, which is the number one thing to break China's stranglehold on the market, and they have changed the market forever.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? I am absolutely sure a decade from now, there'll be things that they did that, in hindsight, probably weren't the best. There'll be things that they did that were fantastic. But if they had not have acted, I don't know what the catalyst would have been to break this nexus with China.
Are we going to see a nice photo of you in the Oval Office anytime?
Probably not.
Let's bring it back to our government here in Australia. How helpful have they been? Because obviously they sense the significance of your project as well, and how that can, add value to our relationship with the US. How helpful have they been in terms of progressing your project?
Yeah. So as Aussies, we can be a bit critical of the large institutions or government. If you look at our debt stack, we've got 9 lenders, and we deal with 5 different countries. And the Australian government is number 1. Now, I wish they would move quicker, but if you look at it from a few dimensions, so if you look at the tools that they have in the toolkit to support projects like ours, they've got more than anyone else. They can come in on the debt, they can come in on the equity, they can come in on the offtake, they provide the production tax credit. So every way they can support projects like us, they've got that. No other country, to my knowledge, has got that many tools. We're very fortunate to have had EFA and NAIF support. And if you look at EFA and NAIF, they know resources. So, and they have the strength and the courage to lead. So when Peter and his team were getting the syndicate of lenders together, I remember being in the Singapore meeting with the 9 lenders, and it was EFA and NAIF that got the lenders comfortable, got them focused on what they needed to focus, and quietly nudged them forward. We got a common terms deed for the 9 lenders. So that wouldn't have happened without EFA and NAIF support. But also the Australian government has been quite active in helping us get some of our offtakes in place as well.
Okay, that's good to hear. What about the Northern Territory government? How welcoming have they been?
So you can always tell the support that you get by the action bias, and they are the most action bias government I've ever experienced, not just in Australia, but also overseas. And that includes Indonesia, Mongolia, the Philippines. So if you look at their chief minister, she has a big heart for Territorians, right? That's why she's in the job. So she and her cabinet, very action biased in supporting us. Just a bit of a funny story that kind of demonstrates that. So we had some of our procurement people at a bit of a junior level talk to a group in the NT about releasing tenders, and a comment was made. Well, the impression was given, look, the NT don't have this sort of support, contractor-based to support this sort of contract. Somehow that got to the chief minister, and she rang up this procurement group. She rang up the MD of the company, and said, I can be your enemy or I can be your best friend. And right
Wow.
now, I'm not your best friend. So, like, which sort of politician would get that involved and fight for the territory? So I think we're very fortunate to be doing this in the NT. The NT is not a mature mining state like WA, so I see a very significant and important role for WA to support. We are by far their biggest mining investment in the NT. So we kind of look as a bit of an extension to WA.
Yeah, okay. You're pretty close to Alice Springs, which we often, when it pops up in the news, it's fairly negative stories about social issues on the ground there. Tell us where you are in terms of distance from Alice Springs and perhaps some of the opportunities that might come to the people of Alice Springs and surrounding areas, particularly as you move into the construction phase, which often brings, a high level of employment with it.
Yeah. So I think probably need to look at it from different perspectives. So firstly, we're 135 kilometres north of Alice Springs, which is pretty good, right? So we can use their airport, etc. What I would say we bring to Alice Springs is many things, but let me just talk to the two main things. So firstly, just the infrastructure. So we will, just our phase one, will double the number of containers through the Darwin port. And so the infrastructure needs to be built out for us, and that will then help enable other projects, lower the logistics costs, lower the barrier to entry. So I think that will have a broader impact. But the other thing is capability, whether that's direct employment or through services, through contractors, et cetera, and we want as much of that to be done in Alice Springs. When I was at Olympic Dam, it was about 50% fly in, fly out versus residential, and you could tell, right? Generally, you could tell there's a higher level of commitment from those that lived in the town because they depended on Olympic Dam. So it's good for the town, it's good for business, and you can see how that would then unlock other projects in Alice Springs. In terms of some of the challenges, I don't know how many people have been to Alice Springs, but it's an inherently spectacular place. Like the landscape, the way it changes, it has to be one of the prettiest places to live in Australia. It does get hot though, but you need air conditioning. And there's a lot of goodwill to solve this social cohesion, and we can play a role in that.
Yeah. What about opportunities for Indigenous employment?
Yeah. So obviously that's a big focus. Let me share an embarrassing story, and the reason I'm sharing it is it opened my eyes, and it's top of mind for us. So when I first went to Olympic Dam, they had what I thought was a crazy recruitment strategy where they would recruit Indigenous people that had been incarcerated. I thought, what on earth are you doing? And they were invariably young men. So I wanted to can it. I thought, this is a crazy idea, but it's going to be contentious. So anyway, so I went in and I sat in one of these training sessions, and one of the guys took me out on a clay pan for a weekend with them as well, etc. Anyway, what I realised was a couple of things, and I became their biggest fan, is one, when you understand the dysfunctional homes they've grown up in, whether it's violence, whether it's physical violence, whether it's alcohol abuse, whatever. And then you start thinking, well, if I was in that environment, where would I be? So we are gifted, and we don't realise how gifted our upbringing has been. But the second thing is when you give them a job, it's not a job. When you give someone that's employed a job, it's a job. When we gave them a job, we gave them hope. We gave them, we triggered ambition. We gave them financial independence. We gave them discipline. But most of all, what we gave them? Self-belief. And when they believed they could break the cycle, they became better fathers, better husbands, and then this cycle was broken. And the gratitude they were the most loyal employees. They would do anything for you. And it actually changed the culture around them. So anyway, it completely opened my mind. So invariably, you know, you can't judge by the circumstances that they're in.
Yep.
And if you give them a lifeline out of that, you get more than an employee.
Mm-hmm. So the net social benefits of what you're doing there are potentially enormous once again.
I think so. And I know it's not easy. And the success rate was 50%. And there was quite a complicated pathway to get them into the workforce. So it's by no means easy, but the benefit is extraordinary.
Yeah. So you mentioned the mine itself is about 135 k's out of Alice Springs. What about your processing plant?
It's all the same. It's all on site.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What are the logistical challenges like in terms of then processing it there and then moving it off to send to your customers? How's that going to work?
Yeah. So one of the benefits of doing it all on site, and just to put this into perspective, the main process plant, so not the whole site, but the main process plant is 1.2 kilometres long and about 600 metres wide. So it's a significant process plant. But the benefit of processing it all on site, when you mine and process rare earths, it comes with radionuclides. And it's actually very similar to Olympic Dam. The reason why Olympic Dam processes to the end product is to pull out all the radionuclides so that whatever goes off site is radiation free. So we have that benefit from doing everything on site. But the NT, if you look up the infrastructure up to Darwin, it's not really set up today for that sort of scale. It doesn't have, like for example, you've got to get it off a ship onto road, then rail and back onto road. But there's a lot of support to change that, not just for us, but for the Beetaloo Basin, which is an incredible project, rapidly opening up in the NT. And there's many other mining projects in the NT that are on the cusp of being economic. And if you can remove some of these barriers and bring capability into the town, you'll see them get up as well.
Okay. What about other rare earth projects that might pop up in Australia? Given your enormous processing capability, might you be able to help to get those off the ground without giving away your competitive advantage?
So look, we have, yes, absolutely. So I talk about having 3 growth vectors. So we have our organic growth vector, phase 1, phase 2, potentially phase 3. The second growth vector is becoming a processing hub. And it's one of the reasons I think we've had some support from the Australian government, because other rare earths projects typically only need in the order of 30% of the capital to get up if they used our processing hub. And then the third vector is acquiring, and this is like a 10-year sort of game plan, is acquiring other projects that are at the pre-feasibility phase that we can take into operation and take all the way to an oxide.
To any suppliers in the room today who might think, I'd like to be a part of this next phase of your project, what do you look for, apart from just their obvious capability to do a job, but what do you look for in a partner?
Yeah. So many things, but let me call out 2. So we're not going to have a fatality. So that is number 1. We can't say we care about people and enable a fatality. So that is absolutely number 1, and zero tolerance on that. The second thing, and there's many things, right? But the second thing is we are looking for people that give us the minimum viable solution. So we're looking for the Toyota, not the Mercedes, and we're looking for people that come to us and say, you know what, you're asking for A, B, and C, but you probably only need C. We've got to deliver this thing for the funding profile that we've got. We're pre-revenue, a little bit like Fortescue, happy to spend money later, but our focus is deliver this thing safely, on budget, on schedule, start generating cash flow, and then build from there. And you look at the Fortescue story, it's quite remarkable, right? So their capital intensity, which, and I was in BHP at the time, right? So I did not believe them. And they said, we're going to build this for 1/3 of the capital intensity of other projects in the iron ore projects in the Pilbara. I did not believe them. And guess what? They pretty much did within $200 million of that. Yeah, so we need that sort of focus. And if you talk to Nev Power, he will tell you one of the things that enabled that was the partners. They brought that mindset. So we need that.
That progressive attitude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get to questions from the floor, tell us a little bit about you. You've obviously been in the resources game for a few decades now. What drew you to Arafura and the rare earth sector? How did you end up where you are?
So I wish I had a good story for that.
Make one up.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I have to. So, long story short, my parents owned a bus and a coach business. And I just like mechanical stuff, right? So I just did mechanical engineering, and then did vacation employment in the coal mines in central Queensland, and then went for a job with BHP. And they said, "Oh, do you want to work at Whaler, Port Kembla Steelworks, or in underground coal?" And I said, "Oh, I know coal." So there was really not a lot of thought into it. So that got me into mining. But mining is so dynamic, so interesting. What got me into Arafura was I joined the board as a NED. It must be, actually, it's more than 5 years ago now. And I just wanted to be in a company that was going through the energy transition, because I think you don't know exactly how this is going to play out, right? And if you can have a strategy or a company that can position itself in a way for a significant change that caters for the different bookends of the outcomes, then you are going to win significantly. So that was the draw card. When I became MD a bit over 2 years ago, when the debt was largely sorted and the organisation had to then start chasing down the equity, and investors want to know who's going to be building and operating this thing. And that's when I became MD.
Yeah, okay. Bunch of questions come through from the audience. Thank you to those who've submitted one. I'll ask this one first because I didn't get to it in my list of questions just now, but where do you see the greatest use of rare earth elements being in the future? Where's the demand for it going to come from primarily?
Yeah, so it changes over time, right? So the growth, so if you look at demand, it's going to be growing for at least the next 3 decades. So if you look at today, most rare earths go into the electronics sector. The biggest driver going forward is EVs, then wind turbines, but the biggest growth of all will be robotics. And a typical humanoid robot takes the same amount of rare earths as an EV. And the forecast is that most households will have multiple humanoid robots. So the demand is absolutely escalating. And if you think about it, we're talking about multi-trillion-dollar sectors. You know, look at electronics, multi-trillion dollars. You look at EVs, it will be in the multiples of trillions. Robotics will be in the multiple of trillions. So there's massive commercial sectors dependent on rare earths. And then you've got the military angle as well. So, you know, you can't make a fighter jet, a submarine, a missile without rare earths. And today, nearly 90% of it comes from China.
Yeah.
We're crazy, right?
So, hence the motivation to get cracking on that. We touched on this a moment ago, but this is certainly the most endorsed question in the list here. It says, Darryl, you have over 400 mining industry professionals in the room with thousands of years of experience. What do you need from us all to deliver success developing this very large and very remote, complex project?
So see the Northern Territory and our project as your natural extension. Like it's difficult to get this project up. The way to deliver it safely, on budget, on time is tapping into capability. We need to obviously support ND businesses in getting up, but really we see WA as an extension to NT. And I mean, WA's got all the expertise in the world to support us.
Yep. This one from Jamie says, Australia has world-class rare earth resources, but we're still competing against established global supply chains. What do you think will determine whether Australia becomes a global leader in critical minerals over the next decade?
So it's a little bit like it's critical mass. So you look at iron ore, it all starts with critical mass and speed. So I would like to think that getting us up and becoming a processing hub, that will unlock quite a number of other rare earths projects that only need 30% of the capital. Funding has been our key challenge, which post tomorrow will be behind us. But if you only need 30% of the capital, a lot of other projects can get up.
Yeah, okay. Final question, because I think we're just about out of time, possibly a controversial one. With the reasonable investment from the US, is there an expectation to limit procurement from China for any of requirements for the construction of the project?
So we have assumed that we will not be able to procure from China, and that has been the long-standing position. So as we've designed the plant, we've made sure that we can get what we need, whether it's raw materials, equipment, etc., and expertise outside of China. So China's got a ban on rare earth technology. Yeah,
okay. Darryl, thank you so much. There was a bunch of other questions there, some quite technical ones too. I'm sure Darryl will be around for a little bit, so if you'd like to have your question answered, I'm sure Darryl will be happy to have a chat to you. But we are out of time, unfortunately, for our chat here now. So thank you so much, Darryl. I'll get you to stay there for a moment. I'll invite Jordan back for a more official vote of thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Tim, Darryl, thank you so much. I had a smile ear to ear hearing the feedback about the club, so I really appreciate that. Incredible man, exciting project. Appreciate you deep diving with us on stage and your honesty. So thank you. Excited to see how tomorrow goes. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.